welcome to Victory Points. I'm Becca Scott, and on this show every week I interview a guest about board games and why they love them and why they've changed their whole life, essentially. And this show itself is its own little game because on Victory Points I get to give out victory points for any reason I see fit, and these points have absolutely no relevance in anything else, unlike any show that's ever done that before. Okay. Today, I am talking with David Aaron Zuckman. He is the creator and designer of Overlords of Infamy and founder, CEO of Obscure Reference Games.
Yep.
Hi.
Hi,
Welcome.
how you doing?
Oh my God, so good. Getting over a cold. Sorry my voice may sound stuffy, or maybe it's just ultra sexy today with the sickness, sexy voice.
I say you own it. Just go for it.
Thank you. Thank you, I will. All right, so David.
Hi.
You made a game.
Yes, I did.
You're making another game, an expansion of that game.
Yeah, Overlords of Infamy and Misery Loves Company.
All right. Tell me, for the listeners, all two of them.
That many? Wow.
Yeah, well, we upgraded from last episode. We had one, now we have two. Tell me how Overlords of Infamy works. I've played it, but I'll let you do the spiel, if you would.
Sure, I'd love to. Overlords of Infamy is a game of silly supervillainy. The idea is you're trying to make everyone as miserable as possible by doing silly things like blanketing the region in glitter or throttling internet speeds to 56K, dividing by 0. That's a really bad one. And the entire time that you're doing this, there's a pesky adventuring hero that's wandering around who's going to murder your lackeys and liberate the land that you've exploited. And yeah, and crazy world events will happen that can just shake up the game in unpredictable ways.
Yeah, and this game is a lot of fun. I've played it. It also is fun for all ages. You made it sort of have these characters that people seem to get really attached to.
Yeah. For small pieces, we say it's 13 plus on the box, but honestly, we've had a 6-year-old sit at our table at conventions literally all day and not lose a single game. Beat everyone they played against. Didn't get a single joke. Still destroyed everyone.
I would crush that 6-year-old. Just want it to be known for that.
I don't know, Becca. Lucas might give you a run for your money.
All right. Well, now you have to get the paperwork signed to say a child's name on the air.
Whoops.
But no big deal. It's fine. Now, I want to talk about a lot of things. Your Kickstarter for Misery Loves Company.
Yep.
Great name
Thank
for the expansion. And we're also going to talk about a game called Root, because you mentioned it's one you really like, and I really like it too. And that is one that's sort of been labeled for its asymmetrical character goal mechanic, and so I want to talk more about asymmetrical games in general. We'll get to that, but just wanted to give the people a heads up that that's going to happen. But the first thing that I really, really need to know about you, David, what were the games that were in your house when you were a kid?
Oh, no. Nothing that you'd want to play today, probably. I think we had Go for Broke. There was at least 2 kinds of Monopoly, which I really loved as a kid.
Same.
I definitely had the Pokemon Master Trainer game.
Ooh.
Yeah, it was you travel around the map, which was based on Kanto, and catch Pokemon. It was interesting. I definitely say that it sparked my interest in game design at a young age, but I never touched upon it again until I was much older.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So what did make you decide that you were going to be a game designer? Was that always the trajectory?
No, actually, I went to school for film and video editing.
Oh, another one.
Yeah, as soon as I graduated college, there were no jobs. I didn't know anyone in the industry, so I had to pivot to something else. But many pivots later is when I got into game design.
Is that how you know Ivan Van Norman? Did you guys go to school together?
We didn't. Well, actually, we might have, but I never met him, so
Oh, okay.
it could happen.
Because he has a similar story. It's interesting in Los Angeles that these things have become so parallel. But, producing, it requires a lot of the same skill set as overseeing a whole game design, perhaps.
Yeah, there's definitely some interesting parallels there.
Very cool. So what were your thoughts when you first sat down to design Overlords of Infamy? What inspired you?
That'd be my good friend Juan and I. We were playing
Juan?
games. Juan and Chelsea, she's awesome too. They're my favorite couple and good friends. So we were sitting down to play board games. I was relatively new to modern games at the time, and they had like 20, which I thought was so many.
Yeah.
And
Good collection. Modest, modest.
right. I think he's up to about 400 or 500 now, something like that.
Okay.
I'm pretty close to that. But we just played a bunch of different games, and then we got on the topic of, what kind of game would you make if you had the chance to do it? And I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And I went to bed, didn't fall asleep for 4 hours, just got up and found an old poster board, and I started designing. And within 24 hours, I had a really, really, really bad prototype of Overlords of Infamy that looks nothing like the game today. But that's where it started.
How long was the prototype process and playtesting and all that?
From when we started until we went on Kickstarter was about 3 years. No, it was 2.5 years. 2.5 years.
And when was the original on Kickstarter the first time?
February 2016.
2016.
Yeah.
Ooh, and now it's 2019, and
I
here you
know.
are with your first expansion.
Yeah.
And will this be the first reprint of the game as well?
That is correct. It is a reprint of the game. We're actually calling it a second edition because there's a lot of updates that we've done to the game. We've completely overhauled the rule book. We're changing the wooden tokens. We are making a new insert for the box that will hold all the expansion material, things like that. So we're just calling it second edition.
Perfect. Now, you don't have to talk about this if you don't want to.
Uh-oh.
You had issues with your artist at some points, right?
Yeah, we had some art issues for sure. Without going into too much detail, we went through 9 artists before settling on a few that we really liked for Overlords.
9. Wow.
Yeah, one of them actually sued us.
What's it like to be sued?
Well, I couldn't really tell you because the judge took one look at what his complaint was and threw out the case.
You must not be a gamer.
I guess not. But it was basically a couple of months of being apprehensive and saying there's no way he's going to win this case, and then 1 day's worth of we're in court now. Oh, it's over. So
just apprehensive. It wasn't like,
Yeah.
oh my God, what is my life? I'm being sued right now.
yeah,
'Cause I
never
would
been
freak
sued.
out.
Never been sued before. I could scratch that one off the bucket list.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
you gotta live. You
Yeah.
gotta do all the things.
We did have one other issue with an artist. Mainly had to do with designing our wooden tokens and then having a midlife crisis and deciding that they no longer wanted to have their artwork associated with a board game.
And then cut their hands off.
Yeah, they cut their hands off.
Tragic.
Yeah. Most of the time, artists only do that with ears.
One
From
would
what I heard.
think.
Yeah,
Because the
but,
prototype was set,
yeah.
Van Gogh was like, this is cool. Everybody cut your ears off if you want to be a real artist.
Right. I definitely considered doing that, but haven't done it yet.
Well, you're more of a conceptual artist versus a visual artist.
go.
And so you need your ears.
You know what? That's a good point. I'm going to keep that in mind.
Just write it down on your mirror. Remind yourself every day,
Yeah.
I should not cut off my ears as much as I want to.
Yeah, that's a good mantra to go by, I think.
Now, Misery Loves Company, what's new about it? What you got? What you got in that expansion?
We've got a lot of things. Probably the most, I would say the biggest addition that we have is Huff the Tragic Dragon.
Huff the Tragic Dragon?
You got it. She is a force of chaos, and she's come down from the mountains of Planet Fred and destroyed the Kingdom of Good. It's now
Sounds
become
like my kind of girl.
right, and it's now become her horde. And from the Kingdom of Good, now her dragon horde, she travels around the board just squishing lackeys and raising your land, and she's got her own imperatives that she's trying to complete. So she gets to be a 6th player in the game. So she could be semi-AI, or you can have 6 players, in which case 4 overlords, 1 adventuring hero, and then Huff the Tragic Dragon. And it is so much fun playing with the two of them on the board at the same time.
Oh, cool. So I've played before, and what's interesting is that you can thwart your opponents, but it's limited how much, gotcha there is in the game. And then the hero gets in your way just subtly. I find him mildly annoying. But Huff sounds like she is... You're all playing as an evil character, and then you have the force of good, which is the hero. But then there's just a more evil force that none of our baddies can contend with, essentially.
I mean, you could say that, but you could also say that Huff is just neutral evil or chaotic neutral, maybe. Maybe one of those two.
Sure, a force of nature.
She's just out for herself. So she's like, hey, this sounds fun, or this is going to make me better. Let's go do this. I don't care if it hurts the hero or the overlords. I don't care what it does. I'm just going to do it.
I knew there was something in common between me and Huff.
Yeah.
Chaotic neutral. That's how... What's your alignment?
My alignment? Oh, gosh. More often than not, I am...
I'm going to say lawful good.
Believe it or not, that was the first D&D character I ever played, Lawful Good Paladin, which was a 6-foot-tall, walking, talking blueberry muffin that was a paladin.
What?
Yeah, I was enchanted. I could shrink down to 1/6 my size since muffins are mostly air inside. My blueberries were explosive if I ripped them off me and threw them at people. It was great. Thanks, high school. But that was definitely Lawful Good. Since then, I tend to go more lawful neutral or chaotic neutral, or somewhere in there.
Love it.
Chaotic good's also fun.
Okay, well, sure, lawful boy.
Okay.
Blueberry muffin boy.
Yeah.
And we should also mention to people who have played Overlords of Infamy before that you guys have streamlined the rule book.
We have.
Which, no offense, rule books are tough. I'm very critical of rule books, and so I'm glad that you guys have rewritten it.
Be critical, because I thought that I could handle writing the rule book myself the first time around, and that was a lesson I learned the hard way. So we've run it by rules editors, some very awesome people, passed it around, make sure that it's actually clear, much more clear now, what you can do and where, and we rearranged where things are in the rule book, so it's easier to find things that are grouped together. I will never write a rule book by myself again, but we're very excited about redoing that, and we're also offering a few other things for people who already own the base game. So with the Kickstarter for the expansion, we also have an upgrade kit now, so you can get everything from the first edition of Overlords upgraded to the second edition materials, which is going to include a box insert that will hold all of the expansion content. It will also have the new wooden tokens that we're printing, the ones that more closely match the iconography on the board, because that is another comment that we got.
A tricky thing that happens when the artist changes.
You got it. That's
sure.
exactly what happened. So, this time around, we are... they'll definitely match the iconography. I believe it's 99% identical to what's on the board. There's like one piece that's very similar but not identical. Other than that, we also found some issues on cards that we released originally. We fixed those. All the things that we've had to issue errata for, those have been fixed. All of that's in the upgrade kit now. So if you have the original game, then you can get the upgrade kit. If you don't have the original game, you could get the second edition and get everything anyway.
Interesting errata for the cards, because the cards are so world-changing, the world events, naturally. And it's something I noticed with the game like Betrayal at House on the Hill. When you have something that changes rules, that requires its own set of play testing.
Right. And we had over 200 cards in the base game. So
wow, that's 200 games to test. I mean, hopefully, I don't know. I've never play tested my own game before, so I don't know. I assume
it's a lot of
normal
testing.
Amount of testing, but when you have to exponentialize it.
I think we were still doing playtests on the base game up to the moment, or the day before we sent our files to the manufacturer to print.
Wow.
So, I mean, this was well after the Kickstarter. We were still testing. And by that point, it was a well-oiled machine. But every now and again, we'd find something that, maybe we should make this a little clearer. And then we found plenty of those after we released.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Hey, that's what second editions are for.
Exactly.
So let's move on a little bit and talk about, you told me some of your favorite games.
Yeah.
Twilight Imperium, 3rd and 4th edition being some of them. But we've already talked about that recently, haven't we? Haven't we, my listeners?
Oh, did
my
you?
Sweet
Yeah.
listeners.
Yep.
Yes, that was our first episode. And I actually, because of this cold that you're hearing right now, had to cancel a Twilight Imperium game last weekend.
By the way,
Still heartbroken.
if you're looking for players, I will never say no to Twilight Imperium.
Oh, interesting. All right. Adding you to the list. Noted. What I want to talk about is Root, a game of woodland might and right. This is released in 2018 by Leader Games, designed by Cole Worley,
Whirly, I believe.
art by Kyle Farron. So this is basically a straight-up war game, but you'd never think of it that way because you're playing as one of 4 adorable woodland creatures, or 6 if you have the Riverfolk expansion. And a lot of it is area control, but it's unique in that the character goals are asymmetrical, I would say. And basically, first faction to 30 victory points wins. Some cards allow a player to go completely off the scoring track and have a brand spanking new win condition. I found that really interesting. So what is it that you enjoy about Root?
For Root, I never really played any counterinsurgency games, coin as they're colloquially known. But when I got into...
what is a counterinsurgency game?
I
That's a new
don't
term
think
for
I'm the best one to do justice explaining it, because as I mentioned, Root is basically the first one I played.
Okay.
This is essentially takes all the elements of a war game, as you mentioned, like that, and then it breaks it down, and each different faction embodies one of those one of those elements of the game. So it's really interesting to me because every time that I play it, and regardless of which faction I choose, I see a new way to win, or I see something that, oh, hey, if I had done this last time, it might have been better. And then I try it, and I'm like, oh, wait, something else might have been better. There's always something new with this game, and every time I play it, I just have such a good time. I don't think I've ever played it with anyone who disliked it afterwards.
Yeah, I love this game. I find it beautiful. So let me just go over the 4 factions you can play.
Yeah.
So there's the Marquis de Quette, and this player starts with almost full board control. There's different areas on the map that... their goal is sort of engine building because they're building workshops and lumber mills and barracks, and everyone else is sort of trying to tear them down, but they start with the most power, I would say. And then there's the Eerie. This is my favorite. They're the old birds, and they're sort of the old guard, I would say.
Crotchety.
Yeah, super crotchety. They capture territory from the cats. They build roosts, and they have a unique engine building mechanic because if they ever can't do a step of the engine that they have built, then the other old crotchety birds stage a coup, and then they have to take a small penalty and start their engine over. So that's really interesting, and something I haven't seen a lot. Then there's the Alliance. Of course, you got to resist. And what type of animal are they?
The Woodland Alliance are they are a combination of animals. I believe they represent basically the mouse. So I've referred to them as the Toastland Alliance because the little meeples look like toast.
Yes.
But no, they're
it's the most adorable war you'll ever come across.
Yeah.
So they sort of hide in the shadows, recruiting forces, hatching conspiracies. I think this is the most difficult faction because I played as the cat, and I just squashed any rebellion they tried to plant a seed of before they could do anything.
Yep.
So they are sort of more late game domination. It's a lot of planting those seeds. And then there's the Vagabond, who does whatever the F they want and goes off on taking from players and giving to other players. They trade their cards for goods and have their own side quests and have a totally different goal structure than anyone else. They don't control land. They don't have an army as the other factions do. So that's what I mean by asymmetrical, is that everybody starts with entirely different abilities. But yeah, so who's your favorite to play?
Well, the first time I played this game, I was the Woodland Alliance. And I'll agree with you, it probably is the most difficult because once I played as them, I figured them out. Whenever I'd play as a different faction, I felt they were easier to play. I still think the Woodland Alliance are my favorite, though. I generally like things that are that are difficult for me.
Is that the activist in your heart speaking, or
It might
true
be.
game mechanics?
Well, maybe a little bit of both, but yeah. I also, probably my favorite element of the game, even though the Woodland Alliance are my favorite to play, is the Eerie Dynasty, the birds. And as you mentioned, you can go into collapse if you aren't able to meet your requirements. There's decrees that you must do every turn.
What? We do agree.
Exactly.
Yeah, like that.
And that was perfect. And if you aren't able to fulfill every requirement of that decree, you will go into collapse. And that is something that I've never seen in a game before. And maybe I'm just not playing the right games, but I love that element. It's brilliant. But those are just the races that the factions that are in the base game. The otters are fantastic. They're basically merchants. So they set up trading posts. They set up waterways that you can use in the game, which you can't do normally. You can turn all of their little meeples into your forces for a turn by hiring them as mercenaries. And
that
the best
sounds
part,
utterly fantastic.
oh no, that was awful.
Yeah, it was bad.
But I loved it. You could. The great thing is the player that is playing as them sets the prices for each of those options. So using the waterways, using them as mercenaries, or selling cards, and this
is like the World Trade Commission.
Exactly. And then there's also the lizard cult.
Oh,
yeah. The lizard cult is very interesting because they convert other factions to them, and then they become lizard tokens or lizard meeples. So not only do they get converted to the lizard religion or cult, as you can say, they also get turned into lizards. So in my head, I like to picture them inside of lizard suits.
Yeah,
I think that works,
there's
right?
such rich storytelling that just evolves around this game.
Yeah. And then there's they're even coming out with another expansion. It's going to be on Kickstarter soon, and it's going to be the crows and the moles.
The crows? But we already have birds. The crows.
I know. And unfortunately, I don't know too much about this one yet, but it's got my attention.
Cool. Well, I should mention that you sometimes work the Leader Games booth at conventions because they're your buddies.
They are fantastic
Full
people. Yep, full disclosure. They are fantastic people, but the only reason that I agree to work in their booths is because of the amazing games that they made. They had me captured with Vast. Vast was incredible. If you're talking asymmetrical games, Vast is one that you should look at. And that is another game where every single faction that you play as, every character that you play as, has a different win condition and different play conditions entirely. So it's like Root. It's a bit more in depth when it comes to the asymmetry, but they're both fantastic games, and I will generally never say no to playing either of them.
Excellent. We got to take a short break, and then we'll be back to talk more about Root and Asymmetry with David Aaron Zuckman. Welcome back to Victory Points. I'm here with David Aaron Zuckman, the designer and creator of Overlords of Infamy and the soon-to-be released expansion Misery Loves Company, and we're talking about Root.
Yeah.
Root and Asymmetrical Mechanics. Now, I came across this post on Medium by Drew Knox. Shout out to Drew. And here's how they broke down different styles of asymmetrical mechanics. Because when you think about it, anything can be characterized as asymmetrical because every player is going to have a point at which their gameplay diverges. So there's results, for example, die results, which your favorite game ever, Monopoly. Your dice roll changes, different players land on different properties and have the ability to buy different properties. Or Machi Koro.
Sure.
One that I find extremely frustrating. The Harbor expansion's better, but because luck is such a deciding factor in what you can do, those are asymmetrical results.
It's craps the board game.
Yeah, that's not really what it is. Craps the board game. That's not really what we mean generally when we're referring to asymmetrical. Then there's starting parameters like Catan, which really you're choosing, but you have different abilities based on where on the board you start. Then there's information that's asymmetrical. For example, when your cards are secret, like Magic the Gathering, because the other player has no idea what you're starting with. And then asymmetrical abilities. This is mostly cooperative games, Pandemic, Forbidden Desert. So at least there's something unique you can do on your turn, even though I will quarterback the crap out of you no matter what you choose. And then there's two more. There's goals that are asymmetrical, which I guess Root isn't exactly asymmetrical goals because everyone's working for victory points unless you go off the grid, you find that card.
The dominance card, yeah.
Yeah, the dominance card, which if anybody finds a dominance card, they have to put it face up on the table, right?
If they want to. They don't.
Or they can just hoard it.
Yeah, they aren't required to use it as a win condition. They could use it for other reasons. For example, if you have a card, you need to use a card that fulfills a certain requirement, you could use that instead.
Right, but then it doesn't just go to the regular discard. It goes face up on the table for someone else to claim the alternate win condition. So that's an example of a goal that's asymmetrical. I would say Twilight Imperium has secret objectives as well as public objectives, but the secret objectives are asymmetrical goals. And then there's rules asymmetry, which is the most asymmetrical a game can get. And this, I would say, the Vagabond has rules asymmetry. As you were saying, I haven't played Vast, but I need to because it's one of the best examples of asymmetrical rules. But yeah, is there something about asymmetrical games that you like or that you try to put in your game?
Well, from that list that you read, that's really actually an interesting way of looking at it, that everything is asymmetrical. And I guess there's varying degrees of it in that way. And the asymmetry in that way is what makes games fun to play. If everybody was literally exactly the same, you'd have chess, right? Chess is a good game, but actually,
don't diss chess on my podcast.
Oh, no. Chess is one of my favorite games of all time. I was on the chess team all through high school. Thank you very much.
Oh, nice. I tried to start my own chess club, but no one wanted to join.
That's too bad. I actually worked as a chess tutor for about a year and a half with, shout out Jay Stallings, awesome guy.
Hold on. So there are parents who pay to have their children taught chess?
Not always, but as I mentioned, California Youth Chess League with Jay Stallings, he's a visionary, and when I was in second grade, I joined his CYCL, and I stayed with him all through high school, and then I ended up tutoring as part of his team when I was in college. And he is a brilliant person, not just as a chess player, but everything that he does is to help out the community. And I can't imagine what he does makes him much money, but he still does it. And he's very focused on that. And now he's expanded and he's offering kits for people to start up their own chess leagues in his fashion around the country and probably around the world at this point. So shout out to him. He definitely sparked my love of chess and probably gaming at large, I would say.
That's incredible. Tell me his name one more time.
Jay Stallings.
Jay Stallings. That's so cool that you taught chess in league play. That's so cool. What did that do for you to work with people and kids in that way?
Well, I love people and kids, but chess teaches you patience. And I would definitely say it helped me focus. So, yeah, I guess it did that for me.
What do you think it does for the students that go on? I mean, patience, of course.
Sure. I've seen kids that have some behavioral issues or issues sitting still, focusing, ADHD, things like that. Chess gets them to sit there and think about what they're doing. I've seen my nephew who does the same thing. He has a lot of trouble just sitting and paying attention to things. Chess helps him focus.
Wow,
Yeah.
Interesting. You know, I've been dealing with this in my own life because I think I have focus issues and I can't sit still for very long unless it's a game. That is the only thing because then my mind is going a million places.
Sure.
But I find that so difficult to physically sit still in general. Do you have that issue? Or?
Yeah, I would attribute that to information overload because at this point, there's so much information at our fingertips, so many things that we can do and not enough time to do it. But we have so many things that are interesting to us that we want to focus on. Like Kingdom Hearts 3 just came out and I'd love to play that, but I'm also looking at the Kickstarter. And then there's The Witcher 3, which I haven't started, and Divinity 2. And yeah, so it's so many different games.
I've played a lot of Witcher 3.
I will. I just know
recommend.
that that it's going to take up my entire life. So I got to set aside about a month for that one. Maybe more, I don't know.
Yeah,
but
it's the decision paralysis of what to do. But
Exactly.
when you've committed with other people to sit and play a game, then I guess you're there.
And that's the reason I make games, is there's so many terrible things going on in the world right now, things that I don't want to think about. Everybody gets stressed. If I can make a game that allows someone to sit down and forget about their problems for an hour or two, I feel like I've done my job.
That's beautiful. That's really nice.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's a very cool reason to make games.
Yeah.
And something about your game is, well, it could be worse. We could have these evil overlords doing these problems. Although, debatably, few things are as bad as what's actually going on out there.
Well, I mean, at least in certain ways, like with my game, you could make fun of it or you could laugh at it a little bit. Like, I think one of my favorite plots from the first game is build a wall and make the Kingdom of Good pay for it. That one gets a lot of laughs every time it comes out.
Can't wait till that's a distant memory, and it's just talking about, you have this card talking about this historical, laughable thing.
Yeah, like in the expansion, we're going to have a government shutdown card and a few other things similar to that. So.
Oh, yep, you can't leave that out, of course. Longest government shutdown in history.
Gotta love that. That's super exciting. As I'm shaking my head no.
Yeah, but I do have hope that at least some cool policies will be proposed.
Yeah,
in the
sure.
short term, now that the government is back open. So
yeah.
That's not what this podcast is about, but I can't help it because...
Hey, game theory can be applied to real life situations as well.
Well, and I think there's a lot of politics en route.
Sure.
I'm definitely... consider myself part of the Woodland Alliance, but but the birds are just so fun to play.
They are so fun. And then, of course, there's the cats. Who doesn't like cats? I mean, they make me sneeze to death, but they're fun to play.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Yeah, super allergic to
just
cats.
Just thinking about cats makes you sneeze?
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'm sorry that I have a cat, and I hugged you.
Oh, that's
and
okay.
Therefore, you might be sneezy.
I'll survive. We have a cat in Misery Loves Company, Pancakes, and she does not like Waffles the corgi, believe it or not.
I mean, Waffles doesn't like anyone, but...
Waffles hates everyone and everything, so yeah, you're right.
Waffles has taken off. I've seen a lot of buttons. I've seen stuffed animals.
Yeah.
That's the part that I was thinking of when I was saying how much younger people love your game, is they really identify with Waffles, the evil corgi.
Yeah, and I really got to attribute a friend of mine, Michael Yi Chow. He is... a brilliant friend, and when he play tested Overlords originally, he looked at me and he said, "You know what your game needs? You need a corgi." And I looked
True
at him
insight.
and I said, "Our game needs a corgi."
I imagine this very dramatic moment of deep eye contact.
Yeah.
It needs a corgi.
Yeah, a lot of minor keys being played in the background.
Yes.
But no, that was the turning point, and I fully believe Waffles is to blame for a lot of the popularity that the game has gotten.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, well-deserved popularity.
Yeah.
And congratulations on putting your expansion on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And good luck.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for coming on the podcast and talking to me about Misery Loves Company and Ruth.
Thank you for having me. It was a blast.
And thanks so much to our 2 listeners at home for listening to Victory Points. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so that we can go up to 3 listeners. Thanks so much. Talk to you next time.